So today I would like to speak about the Chanuka, the story of Chanuka. I will try to give you 4 different opinions on how to explain what happened really on Chanuka. 4 different opinions that there is that I found so far. Probably there's many more, but these are the 4 that I found. And but before that, there is just as normally I give a Tayag mitzvah shir. So there were, if you want, 2 or 3 mitzvahs essays that we were mekayim this year by Chanuka. According to the Bahag, the Valaluchos Gedolos, there is first of all each day that we say Hallel was a separate mitzvah assay. So he counts 8 days of Hallel of Chanuka as 8 different mitzvah assays. So the mitzvah assay of Hallel that we said today is not the same as you said yesterday, is not the same, etc. So it's all counted as a separate. So if you have the 248 mitzvah assays, in the Yom Tov of Chanuka, you are mekayim 8 different mitzvah assays, which is good to know and good to have. Yeah. Oh, so that's what the Rambam.
Can you have a mitzvah?
Yeah, the Rabbonon, which are yeah. So that's the question of the Rambam. That's why the Rambam he refutes the whole Bahag and he starts from scratch because of that. One of those mitzvahs is Hallel. Plus, he said Hallel was only written by David HaMelech, which was much later. But that's an interesting question because that's first of all, yeah. There is, you can say anything, any Hallel that you say is good, and we have a meaning to say the Hallel, which is the Hallel that David HaMelech wrote. In any way, all that was written in the Chumash Moshe Rabbeinu, as Rabbi Dachossi says, and David HaMelech took it and put it into the Tehillim. This would also be, as we saw already with the Hallel HaGodel, which that Rabbi Dachossi says that, and Moshe Feinstein says that we're not allowed to publish it, etc. So remember, this is not the subject of that shir. That's a separate shir. Then there's also Ner Chanuka. So the Bahag also counts Ner Chanuka as a mitzvah together with Ner Shabbos. Counts Ner Chanuka as a mitzvah. It counts it only as one mitzvah. Interesting. But Ner Chanuka is also a mitzvah according to the Bahag. And there is a little bit maybe also a mitzvah, which is the element that the Ramah says that we should add a little bit of the Su'udah. We should have some, whatever, try to have some more on, like make maybe latkes when we eat latkes on Chanuka. Sorry? But no, but it says it is part of the, it might be part of the mitzvahs assay of Chanuka Sabayis, because the whole idea of the Chanuka is that we celebrate the Chanuka Samizbeach, and one of the explanations of why 8 days is because of the 7 or 8 days that Shlomo Melech made the simcha of Chanuka Sabayis, when he made the Chanuka Beis Hamikdash, and so therefore those 7 days that we are celebrating is still a remnant of the celebration that we did during the time of the Hashmonaim. So it's kind of a continuation of the Chanuka Samizbeach, and Chanuka Samizbeach is a mitzvah assay according to the Bahag. The Rambam doesn't hold at all. He says either it's a Hershon mitzvah or it's part of the Binyan Beis Hamikdash. But the Bahag counts Chanuka Samizbeach. So if the Mizbeach collapses and they have to rebuild it and they have to make a Chanuka Samizbeach, the Bahag holds that it's a mitzvah say to make a Chanuka Samizbeach, whatever it means. And normally the festivities are also nichlal in the Chanuka Samizbeach, not only to bring the Tomit Shachar, but also the festivities that are following that event. So maybe there were 3 mitzvahs that we were mekayim according to the Bahag. According to the Rambam, we were not mekayim any mitzvah. Even Pesum and Nisa is not counted as a mitzvah according to the Rambam. It does not count it as a mitzvah. So this is the element of the 3 possible mitzvahs that one was mekayim during the last 8 days. The eating an extra meal, you can still be mekayim. Those who have forgotten Hallel, they can still say it, but lighting the candles, unfortunately, that's the one that is over already. This you cannot do anymore today. Concerning the story, last time I already discussed the explanation of the different stories, and I will just recapitulate. I will make summarizing it, but also, and I will add a new one that I found, and which will be very interesting. So I will give you 4 different reasons of the Chanuka the story of the Hanukkah. The first reason of the story of Hanukkah is the one that we were told as a child, which is also one written in the Gemara, and it's also brought down in the She'iltas and also even in Megillas Tainis, is a story that what happened is that we are celebrating 8 days of Hanukkah because of the Nes. There was a Nes, the Hashmonaim they won, and they had a Nes that they had only one card, or not even one card, as it says in the She'iltas. It was not even enough for one day, but according to the Gemara, it was enough for one day. And basically, the idea was that it was burning for 8 days, and since then we are celebrating it for 8 days. That is the traditional way of seeing it, based on Emunas Chachom. This is what we are continuing telling our children. This is how we've been raised up in the whole story to celebrate. So we are celebrating a Nes, and the Nes of the Nes of the Shemen. There is a lot of questions about that, and one of of course, the famous question of the Beis Yosef is why 8 days? Why not 7 days? The first day was not a Nes, and therefore there's a lot of different answers. One of the answers that was given also, I think the Taz brings it down, is that it's true only 7 days are for the Nes, and 1 day is for the Nitzochim, for the victory, the military victory, and so therefore we have also a day for the military victory. Now, if you look up in all the Sifrei Chitzonim, in the Apocryphs, which is the Sefer HaMakkabim 1 Aleph and Sefer HaMakkabim Beis, if you look up in the history books that were written at the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, then you will see that the story is not at all mentioned in those books. So there is very little, if not anything, written about Nes of the menorah, even less written about the mitzvah of lighting a candle on Hanukkah. Sorry? Yeah. The only thing which has been developed and has been written a lot about is the Nitzochim. The whole story of how and who, etc. This has been documented a lot. One of the books that I've seen inside, I mean, the Hashmonaim, definitively you can check it on internet. In the Apocryphs, I think that in Sefaria, they have the Sefer Hashmonaim, Sefer Maccabim, I don't know how they call it. It's not mentioned, only the Nitzochim. Sorry? We don't know who wrote them, that's a problem. So we don't know the authors, and but probably it was Maccabim themselves. And they have recorded their own victories, but not the Nes, not the Nes of the menorah.
Oh, the actual menorah. They record the Nes, the victory.
The victory, yeah. Right. They're only the victories, military victory they record. There is also the Josephus, which lived 200 years after.
Yeah.
He actually writes that there is also a Yom Tov, and he describes all the human Tovim of Klal Yisrael. It describes Hanukkah as one of the human Tovim. And then he says it's called, it does not call Hanukkah, it doesn't give it a name Hanukkah, he calls them the Chago Oiros, I think, something like in Latin translation. I think he wrote it in Latin. But it is the Festival of the Lights. And so he says, I don't know why, but I guess that it is because they went by the Nitzochim, the military Nitzochim, they went from darkness to light. And so it's kind of victory. Light, symbol of victory. We went from darkness to light, and therefore we call it the Festival of the Lights, which is very difficult. Sorry? Yeah. He referenced the whole victory. He speaks about the whole military, explains how they did and who and which king and how, and the whole story. And then he says that to commemorate that, we have the Yom Chanukah, and he calls it the Chago Oires, but he does not mention the why. He says he doesn't know himself why it's called Hagor, which is difficult to understand because I'm sure that he was a child. He was still very religious, went to Cheder, and he had parents, Jewish parents. They were lighting candles, as everybody was lighting candles. Chazal tell us that the next day they already instituted the lighting of the candles. So he must have known, at least. Yeah.
What year was
200 years after the story?
the story happened by
Sheni.
End of
Bayis Sheni. Josephus already describes the Churban Bayis.
Okay, so the recording.
Yeah.
I don't
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, but don't forget that there's a Gemara called Gemara or Shabbos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, Shabbos.
Is a Tanoim, is a Tunu Rabbonon, I think. It's a
It's
Braisa.
Tanoim, which is pretty much recently after.
Could be before, could be after. Because there was also Tanoim during the period of the Hashmonaim, there was a Tanoim.
Gemara of Torah could be inaccurate as well. They could be at the time.
Of course, the text of the Braisa could have been written at the time.
Right.
So we have here two contradictions, two books which are contradicting each other.
What you have,
it
doesn't come from the Yisrael Shabbos, because we never thought about it. The menorah was in the Bifnim.
Bifnim, yeah.
So the Israeli, nobody saw that.
Nobody saw it, yeah.
So you saw that today we made this Pirsum the Nisa.
Yeah, nobody saw it.
There was no Pirsum the Nisa for most of the people.
Yeah.
It's
okay. However, if you were standing on a particular angle, you probably could see the menorah. I mean, the idea that you could see the menorah if you were standing, because they said that the Lechem Aponim they lifted it up a little bit to show that it was still fuming the whole week, and so you could see from an angle you could probably see. But then this contradiction is a big problem, and so the main idea that how we can describe the Yom Tov of Hanukkah is that it started off, and that's the teretz that normally tend to give, is that it started off as a kind of nationalistic Yom Ha'atzmaut, if you want, the day of the festival of Atzmaut, of independence. We won the Greek, and therefore we are celebrating it, etc. And because at some point the Jews, it was never 100% accepted, because even the Sefer Hashmonaim, they write a letter to the Jews that were living in Mitzrayim, trying to convince them to accept it as well. And the Jews of Mitzrayim apparently were not very keen, the Rabbonim, they were not very keen to accept it as a Yom Tov for whole Klal Yisrael. So it seems that there was not yet a political consensus that it's something good that happened, that this rebellion, it was something that is positive and had to be celebrated. There is even some want to explain that the whole Gemara in Ksubas, because the story of Hanukkah started off, how did it start? Why did the rebellion start? Because the daughter of, I think it was the daughter of Matisyo, who needed to get married, and at that time, they had to, before she was a psula, in order to go from, we're not allowed to get married until you were coming into the house of the king at the time, from the Greek, and then he was actually raping her. So the idea was that every time you had to first go through that procedure before you could get married. And she did not want, and the father says, you're right, and we will not let this happen, and they made a rebellion. So it was based on a rebellion that started off with a marriage. And the whole Gemara in Ksubas, it's interesting, the whole Gemara in Ksubas in the beginning, when the Gemara asks, why do we marry on Wednesday? The Gemara says, because like this, if he founds a Be'ula, then he can get 100 zuzim, money, he has to pay 100 less. So it's for 100 to make the husband gain 100. The Gemara said, by 1 second, but she might, in the time of the Higomen, she might be raped, and so maybe we should not do it. So he says, no, what's the problem? They should get raped. What's the problem? It's onser achmone patre. She's an oinus. It's not a problem. The Gemara could have asked what about Kohanim, but let's not discuss that part. But and so the Gemara says, so you know what? We allow them for that reason. But the Gemara says, yeah, but there are some tznuos, and the tznuos will let themselves be killed. So maybe we should do. Okay, you know what? We let you do it on Tuesday. But originally, the Gemara did not care about the fact that there would be rape. Rather, the 100. That's the reason why it was very important for Chazal that the 100, the husband should be able to claim back the 100. But the fact that their daughters will be raped, that's less of a problem because it's the oinus. A bit strange Gemara. But if you read it from the perspective that I just explained you, the idea of the Gemara wants to make a point is, don't do this anymore. You've done it once, it was successful, but we don't like that element at all. We don't like rebellious, we don't like nationalism. It only ends up with tragedies as it ended up with the Bar Kokhba. We already spoke about it a few times, that the story that happened with the Hashmonaim Chazal say Rebbe does not mention it, so they explain a lot of, lately I've seen a few answers. Why doesn't Rebbe mention in the Mishnah Chanuka only a few mamish few times, but doesn't give any explanation and any dinim, a lot of dinim about it? Is because he was not happy, Rebbe. Why wasn't Rebbe happy? So one of the terutzim, two terutzim, one of the terutzim that I've seen is because the Hashmonoim should not have taken over Malchus. Malchus belongs to Yehuda. And the second answer, which is more or less the same, is that normally in Judaism, we have, if you want, separation of three different forces. You have the king, which is a national leader. You have the Kohen Gadol, which is our family leader. And then you have the Nossi of the Sanhedrin, which is our religious leader. And here, the leader of the family, the religious leader, if you want, and the king, which is the national leader, was the same. So there was this link between the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol and the Melech. This all was the same, and Chazal don't like this mix, as we don't like it in democracy. Also, between we don't want the church and the state to be mixed, and so therefore they were not happy about that at all. But we could say that the reason why they're not happy is Rebbe, we saw it already a few times, and I have many occasions where I see that, is that Rebbe held that revolutions and things like that is not something that we should promote. And Chanuka is promoting revolutions because, yeah, we go and we went and we succeeded, and we should remember that forever, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how. No, we forget about it. It was a success. Be happy. And by the way, it didn't last very long. Last maybe, I don't know, 100 years, and then the Romans came. But anyway, it's not a big success. But anyway, at that time it was a success. So be happy, but don't do it again. So trying to downplay a lot the element of Chanuka. Oh, so anyway, so the idea here is that the Hashmonoim, they wanted to make a proper Yom Tov. They want to make a Yom Tov of 8 days, like Sukkot. They wanted to do mamish a Yom Tov of 8 days of Sukkot, where there was a machal or mishte. But mamish a Yom Tov, maybe even with Isur Melocha, which is maybe also the reason why women still don't do a Melocha. There are some minhagim that are still remaining. Chanuka is Chanu from they didn't do Melochas. Apparently they started off with a proper Yom Tov, and the problem was this, that as I said, it was not accepted by Chazal. Chazal did not like this type of Yom Tov, and so it actually transformed from a Yom Tov purely a Yom Ha'atzmaut, like a Pesach, or Yitzias Mitzrayim, which was also, and it went into something which became much more religious. It got the religious connotation, the religious accent, which is the Nes, which is about spirituality, etc. So it's more about a fight against spiritual darkness, and this remained. And we could say, and this is my own theory, we could say that the Ner Chanukah started from the Ner Yom Tov. Like it's a very big mitzvah to light the candle on Yom Tov Suda, and it started from a Ner Yom Tov, because the Miachal Mishte have to be with the Ner, we have to light the candle. Women today, they make a brocha, Lat Ner Shel Yom Tov, which is interesting because there is no makor in Chazal, but it seems that it's a logical thing to do. And there's no makor why women light candles on Yom Tov. Shabbos there is. On Yom Tov there's no makor practical, but it's simply because there is no sholem bayis, there's no simcha, there is no tanuk to eat in the darkness. And so the idea is that probably the ner started off with a ner from Yom Tov, which we had to have anur, and Chazal said, okay, you know what, we're going to take that ner, but we're going to make it even, so to turn it from something which was purely for our geschmack, for our pleasure, to turn it into something which has received a kedusha, which has received a pure religious act that we are doing. So it turned from a national festival to a religious act. Inasmuch, even that Rav did not like it. And I already spoke about that on Pesach. There was a machlok between Rav and Shmuel. What is the Hagodah Shel Pesach? Rav holds, Shmuel holds, Hagodah Shel Pesach is Avodim Mu'inu Par B'Mitzrayim Ve'etzeinu Mishom. That it is purely a national phenomenon. We were Avodim, we didn't exist as a nation, and we became a nation by the Exodus by coming out of Mitzrayim. That's the Agoda from Shmuel. The Agoda from Rav, he says, no, no, no. Bo shomer avtuchosa, bo chamukim, it's about the Torah, yeah, the shomer avtuchosa that he gave the Torah. So the question is so he says that everything is around the Torah. So it's about religious freedom. It's about religious identity. And so you have a machlokas, and Rabbi Hanan say that we, in our Agoda, the Baal Agoda combine both. He first put the Agoda from Shmuel, and then he put the Agoda from Rav. Rav was an anti-Zionist, what we can call today an anti-Zionist. He was somebody who went against, did not like the whole idea of nationalism, of rebellious, of making revolution. Shmuel was, he was more of a national person who really tried to be commemorating is our national freedom. And that is why we celebrate Pesach, and this is Avodim Moyin L'Faro B'Mitzrayim. So we say both. We start with the one from Shmuel, and then the second one is the one from Rav. Rav, actually, if you want to know, I will first go to Shmuel. Shmuel, I have even a very interesting thing, because we believe today Moshiach, especially Ashkenazim, we believe in Moshiach. Moshiach will bring us the spiritual freedom, right? Moshiach will come. It's going to be, Beis Hamikdash will be connected to Hashem. We're looking forward for Moshiach, as it will give us our spiritual freedom, and it will increase our spirituality. That is the idea of how we know Moshiach today. It's interesting that Shmuel says that Ein Bein Olam Hazeh Olam Moshiach Elo Shibut. That is Shmuel's opinion. Rav is not at all of this opinion. He goes against that. He says it's going to be something religious. It's the Torah. It's going to bring us more Torah in the world. And the Iker is the Torah. Maybe temporary because of the idea, the danger of what can bring as a Bar Korpa story. And so therefore it was made more out of concern. But in any case, he focuses a lot on that. Rav says, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says that Rav wanted to abolish Hanukkah. Rav wanted to abolish Hanukkah. He says that Megillas Tanis is not valid anymore, and since Megillas Tanis is not valid anymore, with this he abolished Hanukkah. Inasmuch that there was a story, even the Gemara tells in Rosh Hashanah, the story was in Lud. They even made a hesped on Hanukkah. In Lud, they made a hesped on Hanukkah. And so there was the Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yudah, and he says no, and no, that they didn't, they made it. So in other words, there was a contention between the Rabbonim whether or not we should continue with Hanukkah or not, whether Hanukkah is still a place today or not. So you can see that they wanted to abolish completely the Hanukkah. And I don't know about the Ner Hanukkah, but it seems also from the Ner Hanukkah, because the Gemara, if you look in the Shaklevatai there, you could read the Shaklevatai in such a way that they seems to have some time that Rav really says that Megillas Tanis was abolished. The Gemara, Maskon of the Gemara is that Megillas Tanis is abolished, chutz from Hanukkah and Purim. So there are only those two that kept. So you see here that there was, at the time, Hanukkah was very controversial, and because the idea behind that is because it creates emotions of nationalism, and that this is not something that we want. Rav Yudah, who was a Talmid of Rav, Rav Yudah Marav, mainly from Rav, and he says that Rav Yudah is the one that I think in Ksupas says that the three shvuos that you're not allowed to go up to Eretz Yisrael with force. So you see again this whole idea where we struggle our identity of wanting to be independent and fighting for it, or is it a spiritual growth? That the goal is now we have to forget about the past, forget about us being a nation, and now is the time of focusing on ourselves, on our individual, on the prat, on the neshama. That's how, etc. All the elements of the neshama came about, and the whole Torah and the dveikus in Hashem is through Torah and Tefillah, and not anymore through building a nation and etc. So it's not anymore for nationalism. So you see here these two. You want to ask something? So you see here the evolution from where it started off as a national celebration. Therefore, Josephus does not mention anything about the Ner Chanukah, does not mention anything about the Nes, to the celebration of religiosity. That's why we're not allowed to have a Noah of the Ner. It's really something which is only le Pirsum Nisa. We took away the Nitzochen. We give maybe one day for the Nitzochen that we give. The Rogatchover says that not even. Rogatchover says that the brocha that the person, when he sees, he makes a brocha when he sees Roya, because Al Sheros Nisim, that's maybe for the Nitzochen. But we give the Nitzochen very little place, and we are taking the Ner Chanukah as really something which grows, is a spiritual message that we are conveying to the world as a Nitzochen of spirituality. So we have here very interesting explanation, two explanations, either the Nitzochen, nationalistic, or it is a spiritual, and the two are difficult to combine. The Aruch HaShulchan combines them. He says that what happened is they wanted to do a Yom Tov 8 days, and so they decided to make 8 days because Sukkot is 8 days, and all the others, Pesach is better, also 8 days. It's 7 days plus Shavuos, which is disconnected, but Shavuos is called Atzeres from Pesach. And so they want to do a Yom Tov of 8 days. And how do they know that they were right? Is by the Nes lasted for 8 days. So the light, they didn't expect it, and the light burned for 8 days. And so therefore they knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed with a decision to make it 8 days. So it's kind of in between. Aruch HaShulchan tries to find a bit of combining both. But we today, we only took over the element of spirituality and religiosity. There is another explanation. I already gave it last year and 2 weeks ago as well, but I don't think that you were here. But there was also an explanation that two other explanations. So one of them I spoke about it last time as well, is the Choyre is very difficult, because if it is Nisim, a lot of Nisim happened in Klal Yisrael, and we don't make a Nes. Asur Nisim, there were 10 Mofsim in Beis Hamikdash, and one of them was Pesach. Well, it was also the Menorah, and we don't do anything about that. And the second thing is, if it is about Nitzochen, then Be'etzem, for 100 years it was a success, but afterwards we lost again. So why are we still celebrating something which we're embarrassing? I mean, I would be embarrassed if my daughter would ask me, I don't understand, but it was, you won, but it lasted 100 years. Meanwhile, we already I don't know, nearly 2,000 years, more than 2,000 years, we are in Golus, and why are we celebrating a little Nitzochen? I mean, there were a lot of Nitzochen. You see, David HaMelech made Nitzochen, and Yana HaMelech made a lot of kings managed to do a lot of big victories. Why are we celebrating a victory which only lasted 100 years? So it's something is difficult to understand. And also the last question is, how do they see to make a Yom Tov out of it from 8 days? Based on what? Exactly what the 8 days? And so what I saw in a certain Rabbi Foreman and his friend, actually, Rabbi Foreman invited him, and he gave once a shiur, which I heard about the podcast. And I find it a very interesting answer. There is clearly a link between Hanukkah and Christmas. Now, of course, when I say that, I have to be very careful, but there is a link. You see, first of all, Christmas starts 25th, and Hanukkah starts 25th, and then you have 8 days of celebrities between Christmas and New Year, right? So it is 25th till the first is the first is a Chag, and the last is a Chag, and the first is a Chag. So basically, it seems that there is kind of a correlation between the two. And so he found a correlation. And he found a correlation in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah tells us a story of Odom Rishon. If you hold that the world was created on Tishri, and those who hold that the world was created on Tishri, then what happens is that in Tishri, till Tufas Tishri was about the time when the day and the night are the same, and Odom Rishon was sent away from the Gan Eden, and he made an Aveh, sent away from the Gan Eden, And then suddenly he started to work in the field, and then suddenly he started to realize that the sun goes down quicker and quicker, and it's going down. Sorry? The days become shorter and the nights become longer. And he saw that happening, and so he started to fast. He started to fast, and he thought, that's it, the world goes back to Tohu Voyu. Rabbeinu Shalom changed his mind, was disappointed, and changed his mind, and the world is going back to the state of Tohu Voyu and the Chosh Chatnei Tohoim. So basically, it's over, it's finished. And then when it came to Tkufas Teves, then the 21st of December, about, then things went back up. Suddenly the sun came a bit earlier and went down a bit later. And so suddenly he realized that, oh no, it is simply oilum kiminoga noig. So it is about a cycle, it's a physical cycle. And therefore he decided, he said, for the 8 days that I fasted, the last 8 days that I fasted, I'm going to make a Yom Tov from 16 days, 8 days before the Tkufas Teves and 8 days after your pain in your. Okay, so he made the 2 Yomim Tovim, and he says the Mishnah says that those 2 Yomim Tovim the Romans are still keeping at the time of the Mishnah. So at the time of the Mishnah, the Romans are still keeping 8 days of before the Tkufas Teves and 8 days after, and they have 2 different names. I forgot their names, but the Mishnah gives them names. And we don't do anything about this celebration. And so what they want to say is that since we went from darkness to light, so and Chazal don't normally add Yomim Tovim unless they can attach to something that already existed before. And so therefore, we have taken those 8 days that Odom Rishon celebrated, those 2 times 8 days, we took one of them and we created the Yom Tov from there. And so we have the same 8 days as the Romans. The Romans, they celebrated because of Odom Rishon, but instead of celebrating nature, they celebrated their gods. The pagans, the Romans, it was they celebrated their gods. But originally, those 8 days were 8 days when we celebrate the light. When we celebrate those days that where the light comes, that's already a very original celebration that started already from the Odom Rishon. So it's not something which new. And so we took those 8 days and we celebrate them as well. And we make it also a festival of lights, as the Chotefu says, a festival of lights, meaning that we celebrate either the last 8 days, the end, which gives us then, it's more the potential, the danger, that we are showing that we have a danger of going to darkness, but then the days start up, or we celebrate the 8 days that are where the light is coming back up. And that is maybe, that's how I wanted to say, this is the machloikes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So Beis Shammai, they say that we start from 8, 7, 6, so the lights go down. So we are celebrating, because maybe Beis Shammai hold that we are celebrating the first 8 days. And Beis Hillel say, no, we are celebrating the second 8 days, where the light goes back up. And therefore the light always, we start on with 1 little candle, then 2 candles. So we show the light going up again. And oh, you take away the whole religiosity. So, yeah. So,
I have the, like the pagan.
yeah. No, what we celebrate nature. So these are the 200, it's mamash 180 degrees. Either with Chazal say we celebrate religiosity, spiritual growth, and where there's Nisim, that's why it's, Yesum and Nisa, or it's the other way around. We celebrate the fact that there is a cycle, the natural cycle, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the natural cycle of winter and summer, and that it will always come back. That is something which we celebrate, which can mean also, sorry?
The number 8.
8 is, okay, that's today we symbolize infinity. Yeah,
The 8.
yeah, the 8th day. Yom Hashmini is yeah. Yeah.
So in this topic, why don't we do it?
Oh no, because Odom Rishon, the world was created. that Odom Rishon was created. That's why the Gemara says it's only valid for those who hold that the world was created on Tishri, which is actually our Machzer. The Bala Machzer also Paskin. The Rambam Paskin was created on Nisan, but our Bala Machzer, Ayom Haras Oilom, he holds that like the Tanu holds that it was created on Tishri. And so Odom Rishon, the story was on Tishri. That's why we celebrate it on Tishri. I mean on Kislev, which is close to the Kufas Teves, to the Kufas of Kislev. Now, at Kufas Teves, yeah. Now so that's a bit the Machlok between Beshama and Basil, very nice, because otherwise it's a bit difficult to understand. But like this, we can understand. It's one of them is celebrate the Nes, and the other one is the opposite. Olam Kiminogonoik, we celebrate the fact that the Rebbeinu Shalom has created a cycle, and also this also shows the nitzchius of Klal Yisrael, that we are going down, but every time there is a down, there's always an up, and they will never be destroyed. There will always be kind of ups and downs in the whole history of Klal Yisrael. And so this Olam Keminu Gonoik, it's Punkt Faket. It's the opposite of the explanation. So that is the third explanation of the 8 days of Chanuka. The fourth explanation, and with this I'll finish, is Rabbi Yosef Ber Soloveitchik. Rabbi Yosef Ber Soloveitchik of Boston, the Rov, as they used to call him in America. He claims something because of all these questions. He says that there is a hidden message here. And the hidden message that he wants to say is because it can't be that all those Sifrei Chitzonim are claimed, don't even mention, and then we have Chazal, and then even if the Chazal mention, but in Ala Nissim, we don't mention at all the Bidliko, it doesn't mention the Nes. In Chazal, in Ala Nissim, we only mention the Nitzochen of the Melchoma. We don't even mention the Nes. So there's a lot of contradictions that we don't know exactly what happened. And so it seems that there is a hidden reason. And so he claims that the hidden reason was that it is a war against the Jews. And it was, how do you call it, a civil war between the religious Jews and the non-religious. That the idea behind that is that it was not against the Yevonim, but it was against the Misyavnim. So it was against the whole, when the Yevonim came in, there were not so many military. Apparently, he claims, and I guess all kind of theories behind that, but the Jews, they were collaborators. A lot of Jews, the whole of the Jews were collaborating with the Yevonim, and they wanted to be completely assimilated to the Greek religion, and they saw Judaism as something primitive, and so therefore they were helped. So it was not the Yevonim that actually came in and were metama, but it was the Jews. The Yevonim, they didn't care so much on the Beis Hamikdash. It's not their problem. In contrary, they put Apollo. They made it very nice. They thought the idea of the Beis Hamikdash as being something very nice. They could use it for their own avodah zarah as well. They did not have so much problem, but it was more the Jews that were misyavnim that actually were fighting, that we were fighting against. But sometimes Chazal, when the Chazal speak about the Jews, and it's not nice, so they say the Soine Yisrael. A lot of time Chazal, when they say it's Mishum Soine Yisrael, it means for the Jews itself. It's a lot of times is Loshen Saginoel. What? Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so he says that the idea behind that, and why do we celebrate till today? The Nes is finished, and there were many more Nisim, and the Nitzochen of military Nitzochen is only temporary. The Rambam says clearly that the Kedusha Rishono, the Kitchel Shat of Lo Kitchel Sedlovo. Why? Because it was at the Kibush. Yeshua took something that you take with force. It's never Nitzchis. Chazuk is Nitzchis, but Kibush not. I'm not going to go. We already spoke about. It's very difficult, Rambam, but he says that the Kibush that you win is never Nitzchis. So they won the Hashmonaim. We know, we saw it many times that we win, then we lose, and we win, then we lose. Well, why do we still celebrate today? Today we're in Golos, in the contrary, today we should not celebrate. He says, no, because we celebrate not a Nitzochen against the Yevonim, but it's a Nitzochen against the Misyavnim, against the forces within our own Jewish nation. That's something new that never happened before, and it will never happen in the future. That's the idea. That is something which is nitzchis, that we want something even today against the Chanukah symbolizes that the religious Judaism, the Haredi, the Orthodox Judaism will always win, and it's always won until now. Was never. They tried communism, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't mention that, but in general, the Rov never. It never happened anymore that the Rov of Klal Yisrael were fighting against the religion within the Jewish nation.
Scholar.
Sorry. Yeah, okay, maybe, but it's not the majority of the Jewish nation. He says it's not. Mhm. The idea, this is Nitzrius, that will never lose. It's about, it's a hidden message. When he says Yevonim, it doesn't mean Yevonim, it means Misyavnim, but the Chazal don't want to speak Lashon Hara. It's not nice, and therefore we don't have sources. Therefore, the whole thing is hidden. He says the whole thing is hidden because we have contradictory sources. We don't know. Purim, it's clear, we know. Pesach, we know. But Chanuka, nobody knows. As we explained you 3 different reasons why, and everybody has his own theories. Nobody knows. So he claims that it is about the fight against the Misyavnim, about forces within Klal Yisrael.
Difficult to understand.
Oh,
You
yeah,
said like Rav.
yeah.
It's good that
Yeah.
it should be Misyavnim.
Yeah, no. So according to that answer is a very good point. According to that answer, you cannot use the Rav. Then you have to say Rav was against it because the reason like Rebbe that the Chashmonoim took the kingdom for them. They should have given it to Beis David or other reasons why. But so this is the 4 reasons. So we saw basically 4 reasons. The first reason is the Ness. This is the current view. The second reason is the nationalism, and that it was purely a celebration of a winning of a war. We said that to answer both is that it started off as a nationalistic festival and it became a spiritual festival, and therefore the Ner remained, and it's only the Nes remained, and because the Ner that used to be a Ner from a Yom Tov became a Ner that you're not allowed to use. The whole idea is because it's only for spirituality. Rav wanted to abolish it in the middle even, and but at the end this is Yom Tov remained, Chanuka and Purim remained. Then we saw that one of the other reasons could be is because the 8 days of Odom Rishon, that they could choose 8 days because of the festival of Odom Rishon. Which 8 days? The first 8 days or the last 8 days? So before or after? Therefore, the Rabbi Shammai is going down and the Hillel is going up, depending on which of the 2 8 days, the 16 days that Odom Rishon instituted. This is also the connection with Christmas and New Year, is because there's the same. It's based on the same festival originally from Odom Rishon. And then the last part is that it is actually the whole story is not the real story. That the whole story is it was a fight, a civil war within Judaism, within the Jewish nation, and where they were fighting the religious, the Haredi, the Kohanim, that were this reason that were keeping the Torah. They were fighting against the Misyavnim that were trying to give what we call a tumor to the world, and the whole idea against Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and Mila, which is everything that has to do with against the whole Greek culture, which are this I'm not going to explain now, but I already explained once why Shabbos, why Rosh Chodesh, and why Mila. So 4 reasons. I like very much the one from Rabbi Yoshua there, because it makes it very contemporary as today as well, as it is always to remember. And I think also this is the truth, is it's also how we celebrate it today. It's about darkness, and darkness means basically it's not to the world, but it's actually to us. It's actually to remind us from the danger of modernization and open orthodoxy and all the opening again that is happening continuously in our midst, that there is a danger that we are going to lose it, and eventually trying to fight it, even where these forces will start fighting and trying to destroy us and destroy the Torah. So therefore we are, this is a continuous reminder of the victory of the forces of Torah, of Tahara against the Tumah. That's why the Tiaru is by the Tumah, the Nitmo, Tumah Tahara, which is against spirituality. May we be zoiche take to the geula shlemu b'mheru v'yomeinu omen.
Yeah.